You know, I'd never heard the term frenemy or toxic friend until a few years ago. But you know what? I recognised it immediately. Now, for most of us, we hope a true friend will support you, make you feel better when you're down, and most importantly, that you go away feeling happier after you've spent time with them. But if, however, you feel drained of happiness, strength, and positivity, and you leave feeling worse than when you arrived, chances are that they've developed into a frenemy. So, how do you recognise it and what can you do about it? And if you think you're being subjected to underhand and passive aggressive behaviour from a so called friend and want to put a stop to it, keep watching. Hi, Leslie Hornsby here. Welcome to my channel. And I talk about here and teach people like you about brilliant cutting edge NLP techniques and other psychological tools. Basically, it's all about leading a better, more fulfilled life by taking charge of your thinking, your emotions, and your behaviour. And if you'd like to know more, please just hit subscribe to get future videos because I post on a regular basis. And if you think life coaching might be something that would help, I'm more than happy to talk things through. You just have to use the link below and you can make an obligation-free telephone appointment with me. So, frenemies, what on earth is that all about? Well, first of all, these are people who purport to be your friend, but actually don't do anything to support you or help you. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in some cases. A full-on frenemy will go beyond just not being unhelpful, but they'll actively work to undermine you in all sorts of ways, from trying to negatively affect your self-esteem to quietly hoping that you don't succeed at something, particularly if they feel it will diminish them in some way, or at least in their mind. And the chances are your frenemy has poor self-esteem issues. They may well be jealous or envious of you and often resort to passive-aggressive behaviour to hide their own insecurities. A frenemy can be a friend, a colleague, or sadly even a family member. Frenemies will keep up, friendly appearances and possibly even pretend to be warm and supportive. The problem is, deep down, they're often harbouring pretty ugly feelings towards you, be that resentment, envy, jealousy, or anger. A typical frenemy is unenthusiastic when you win and quietly pleased when you lose. And it's sad to say, but the frenemy phenomena is pretty common and in some circles might even appear to be the norm rather than the exception. So what is going on with these people? Well, unfortunately, although it's not great to have to admit it, this behaviour is a common trait of human nature. Our psychological battles between the need for social and personal relationships sometimes are at odds with the egotistical, self-serving aspect of human beings. The fact is, when we look at ourselves, we rarely do so objectively, and rather than, say, reflect on versions of our previous selves, we're much more likely to make comparisons with those around us. Now, the upshot of this is, for example, if a friend is doing well or achieving great things, whilst you want to feel happy for them, if your own life is not quite so buoyant, it can also tip our own subjective view into feeling a bit crap. And another person's success can throw your own life into relief so that you feel you're not okay and life is not rosy. Now, one of the most destructive forms of this behaviour is when the frenemy has little or no self-awareness, but instead projects their frustration onto you. It's also uncommon for people to develop envy and jealousy for others who are either well above them in the pecking order or those that are well below them in status. So it's less likely to find someone developing a frenemy attitude towards the head of a company, for example, or maybe someone who's just cleaning offices. And this is because socially this kind of behaviour develops between people that inhabit the same social circle and status level. Now, geography is also significant. Competitive feelings tend not to arise when someone is, for example, doing the same job, but they are somewhere far away in another location, unless possibly it's the context of a digital space. Your frenemy then tends to be someone who is around you, both geographically and from a socially equitable point of view. You may also find that the behaviour of your frenemy may fluctuate, and it's often depending upon how well things are going in their life or yours. Should your fortunes take a turn for the worst, your friend will see you as less competition, particularly if they're experiencing positive things in their own life. And if that dynamic changes or reverses, then the behaviour may well re-emerge. As the underdog, you pose no threat in their mind. They may appear supportive, even kind, but the moment you're back on track or surpassing them in some way, then the demeanour can change significantly. If you're unsure whether you have a frenemy on your hands, there are some key indicators to their behaviour that you can look out for. So displays of jealousy over your achievements rather than cheering you on is a major clue. They may also seek to undermine you in some way or hurt you. And it's also not unknown for a frenemy to talk about you behind your back. They may also refrain from liking your status updates on social media platforms like Facebook. And if it's really bad, then there may be occasions when they attempt to passively aggressively sabotage you. Now, this behaviour is often easily flagged when what someone says and their body language don't match. Another indicator is the use of destructive criticism. If someone disagrees or expresses disapproval of you in a way that tries to shame you or make you feel guilty, you can pretty much view it as a frenemy behaviour. True friends may disagree with you, but it's more likely to be constructive criticism with friendly advice that doesn't feel like judgment. Destructive criticism is usually about tearing you down. It focuses on upsetting and ridiculing. And there are no good intentions when someone's giving destructive criticism because there's always a level of belittlement involved and offers no practical advice or supportive feedback. Along with this, another gambit of your frenemy to look out for is a tendency to mask their destructive criticism under the pretext of humour. It's also easy to recognise a frenemy by their lack of consideration. A true friend will always keep your wants and needs in mind. A frenemy, however, rarely tries to make your life easier or better. An example I've got is one year not long after my mum died, I was faced with a Christmas entirely alone. Shortly after the holiday, Mary, a friend of mine, phoned, and during that conversation blithely told me that she'd invited an acquaintance who was newly bereaved to join her family on Boxing Day because she didn't want her to be on her own. She'd only known this woman a few weeks, but we'd been friends for over 30 years. I don't think I need to say any more, do I? So what can you do to combat a frenemy? Well, confronting it head on, well, that doesn't always work too well, and you might just find that they become a full-blown enemy because their behaviour is covert and by its very nature is often passive-aggressive. Trying to challenge it will just prompt denials and more than likely a display of outrage and incredulity. And these people are also very good at deluding themselves about their destructive behaviour. Making them face it, well, that's no easy task and it often doesn't go well. If you're not sure whether someone is developing into a frenemy, then you may choose to confide in a true friend that you trust. Share your concerns and see if your friend can throw new perspective onto the situation. Obviously, you need to be sure you're talking to someone who won't pass on your concerns to the supposed frenemy. Now, if you're convinced that this person is actually a frenemy, then one of the best strategies is to simply drift away from the friendship. This means gradually lessening contact over time. Make yourself less and less available until they aren't a part of your life anymore. Maybe begin by delaying your response to their text or excuse yourself from meeting up. Try busying your life so that you can genuinely say that you don't have time to see them. If you want to try and salvage the friendship, then it's time to set and maintain your boundaries. This entails identifying the behaviour that you're not prepared to tolerate. Then communicate these boundaries to the person in question. This could be by resisting ambiguous comments that either convey oblique negativity or perhaps demonstrate jealousy rather than being happy for you about something. If you want to take this approach, do so by addressing their behaviour with emotional intelligence. And what I mean by that is, be straightforward about the situation, but the message that you're delivering needs to be done without emotion. Stipulate fact rather than opinion and be as specific as you can. As an example, when I first began my coaching business, I had to work pretty hard learning how to market myself online. There was a lot of effort and persistence involved, but I finally got my first paying client way back when. And that was a massive milestone for me. Now, my frenemy's reaction was to say that she would never pay to be coached by me. I was pretty taken aback by that at first. In the first place, I wasn't saying anything or suggesting that, and I was quite hurt, to be honest. So I thought for a moment about it, and then I responded by saying to her, I think what you meant to say, Mary, is that you're really delighted and happy for me, particularly as you know how hard I've worked to get to this point. Unsurprisingly, she quickly backtracked and pretended that she hadn't meant to be unkind, and for a while it did stop the behaviour. If you do want to persist with the relationship, it's important to avoid letting yourself be affected by their negativity. Counter the negative things that your frenemy says and does to keep problems from developing. So if, for example, your frenemy tends to cancel plans that you've made together last minute, have a backup plan. And if there are values that clash, maybe avoid those subjects. So an example would be when my frenemy insisted on perpetuating outdated patriarchal gender stereotypes when advising her son about girlfriends, she told him that he should avoid confident girls who were not shy about asking him out, that these girls were probably slutty, and that he should go for the passive feminine girls who waited to be asked. Now, personally, I was pretty appalled, and whilst I questioned her view, I really refrained from an out-and-out challenge because I just know that there would have been absolutely no point. Another indicator of people who are more likely to display frenemy behaviour is self-aggrandizement. It's generally a reaction to low self-esteem and confidence. So these people feel they need to big themselves up in the eyes of other people. So my friend Mary, for example, she'd often tell me what a fantastic parent she was, how popular she was with her son's friends, and how they regarded her as a cool mum. And she also made a lot of how many friends she had, and I was often subjected to extended conversations about where she was going and what she was doing socially. And this was especially true at a time when she knew my social calendar was somewhat Spartan. For the most part, I have to say that I have been gradually distancing myself, which is a shame, as we initially became friends, as I said, over 30 years ago. I realised over time that she's become disappointed in her own life and is very insecure and finds comfort when certain people in her circle are not doing well. She's also not hugely empathetic, which is another indication of someone capable of displaying frenemy behaviour. For example, one day she said to me how she could never live alone, she would be just too lonely, and then she went on to say that it was all right for me because I was used to it. And I think it's fair to say that this shows a singular lack of empathy, certainly towards me, because I don't think anyone ever really gets used to being lonely. I told her that that was probably the most insensitive thing she'd ever said to me. On this occasion, I don't think she realised what she'd said, so ingrained was her behaviour towards me by then. Now, you may well feel pretty angry when subjected to frenemy behaviour and feel like you want to share your feelings about it. In relation to this, I'd say that it's probably best not to gossip about your frenemy. It's very tempting to express negative thoughts with other friends, but this just pulls you down to their frenemy level, really. If you're trying to mitigate their behaviour, making it public may actually make things worse. A little restraint in this regard also prevents your frenemy from getting between you and your true friends. If they're witness to your frenemy's behaviour and watch you take the high road in the face of it, your true friends are more likely to regard you as the trustworthy one. So there you have it. I hope this brief video has given you some insights on how not only to recognise the frenemy, but maybe to have some tactics for dealing with them. And if you've experienced this behaviour, why not share it here by taking a moment to leave a comment below? And if you'd like to explore more fully how you can change how you think and deal with mental blocks, maybe limiting beliefs, and you think life coaching with NLP might be something you'd like to try, then all you got to do is use the link that I've added below to this video. You can get in touch, you can make a 30-minute appointment with me for a preliminary obligation-free chat. And I've also included a free guide to 3 more brilliant NLP techniques that you might like to try. You just again use the link below to download the PDF of that. Don't forget to click subscribe to the YouTube channel to get these videos on a regular basis. I post each and every week. And I hope you can join me again next time with help and advice on leading a more fulfilled life. In the meantime, thank you so much for your company. I hope to see you again next time, but bye for now.